not that I have COVID. She has so many credentials to her credit. Thank you, ma'am. And we also request all of you to have honor of our launching Shield Connect. This is a digital platform where we want to connect all the doctors, and all these webinars will be loaded there, so for the doctors to see later. And we also have doctors who are willing to share their case studies or any reports, anything for their juniors to understand and read through. So this is a platform we have created. Ma'am, allow us to launch this Shield Connect to all the participants here.
Okay.
See, Shield Connect that improves, Connect strives to improve the state of patient care adapting to modern day practices. And then Shield Connect is dynamic platform to connect doctors at one place. Will you next? Shield Connect help doctors to learn from case studies of another doctor. This is where we wanted to publish all of those, ma'am. And the journey from menarche to menopause. So we would be helping to aid their health. Complete and holistic. Yeah, will you next? Complete and holistic infertility solution provider. That is Shield Connect. Next, will you? And also improving the quality of pediatric care. This is our webpage, ma'am, and also endorsed by several seniors. Well, when we go down, you can see several key opinion leaders: Dr. Mahapatra, Dr. Tripathi, Dr. Hema Divakar, Dr. Narendra Malhotra, Dr. Rashma Pai. So we are associated with several of those doctors. Thank you, doctor. And over to Dr. Renu, ma'am, without losing any time for her presentation to take place. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prasad, and I must congratulate the Shield Connect for bringing on such a wonderful platform for doctors, because sharing of knowledge is something which really helps. And in this COVID era, we all have witnessed a lot of, though there was a tsunami of webinars, but undoubtedly we all have benefited by all this all. So as Albert Einstein wrote, the most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious, and it is the source of all true art and science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger is as good as dead. So let's keep living by unraveling the mystery of endometriosis. Endometriosis, as we all know, it is a chronic estrogen dependent. Important thing is, it is an inflammatory, painful disorder in which the endometrial tissue grows outside, and it most commonly involves the ovaries, fallopian tubes, and tissue lining the pelvis, as well as bladder, bowel, vagina, and the rectum. And this endometrial tissue, it thickens and bleeds every time the patient menstruates. Now, the fact sheet is the 6 to 10% of women in reproductive age group are suffering from endometriosis, and 4 out of 1,000 women are hospitalized owing to severe pain. And prevalence is as high as 20 to 50% in infertile women, and 71 to 87% of women with chronic pelvic pain are suffering from endometriosis, and which has been often unnoticed, and females are being labeled as the psychosomatic people faking pain. So the more than 25 million females of reproductive age group, they suffer in India from endometriosis. So the most common painful triad and the conglomeration of symptoms is the chronic pelvic pain, severe dysmenorrhea, dyspareunia, deep dyspareunia, and infertility. But few patients with unexplained infertility, often presenting no symptoms, are having endometriosis. And prevalence of endometriosis in these subfertile women is as high as 20 to 40%. And the causes of subfertility in these women is usually the inflammatory factors and adhesions with endometriomas. Now, as we all know, the types of endometriosis, it can be pelvic or the extrapelvic. In the pelvic, it can involve anywhere in the tubes, ovaries. They are the most common site. In the uterus, adenomyosis, one of the most difficult thing to treat, to operate, and we are all wary of its recurrence. It involves the peritoneum, utrovesical fold, posterior cul-de-sac and pelvic side walls. And on the extra pelvic sides, it can involve the vagina, vulva or the cervix. And on the non-gynecological sides, it may involve the bowel, lungs and pleural cavity, skin as in the form of surgical scars, lymph glands and in brain as well. So there are three theories which have been proposed, and they are said to be the ectopic implantation theory, coelomic metaplasia theory and the induction theory, though no single theory till date have been established for the location of endometriosis. Now for etiologies as well, the few theories, they are prevalent since we were in our MBBS days. The Sampson's theory of menstrual regurgitation and implantation, which suggests only in patients with some sort of congenital anomalies of the uterus where there is retrograde regurgitation, or in patients with normal menstrual flow as well, when we can find some amount of blood in the pelvic cavity. So the thing that is, in such patients, there is lack of apoptosis, which usually happens with this menstrual blood. Now, this retrograde menstruation of endometrial fragments, they are transported to the peritoneal cavity through tubes. Viable cells, they implant and grow, and young girls with obstetric anomalies of genital tract often develop such type of endometriosis and prove this theory. However, the coelomic metaplasia theory, it suggests the coelomic membrane transforms into endometrial tissue, and it explains the endometriosis in ectopic signs. In lymphatic and vascular metastasis theory, the lymphatic and hematogenous spread of endometrial cells is being suggested, and this leads to extensive communication of lymphatics between uterus, tubes, ovaries, pelvic, vaginal lymph nodes, kidney and umbilicus. Now, genetic factors, the risk is 7 times more if the first degree relative is having endometriosis. Now, what is this retrograde menstruation or the menstrual blood is leading to? It leads to the subclinical peritoneal inflammation, which is marked by increasing peritoneal fluid volume, leading to peritoneal fluid white blood concentration, increase in inflammatory cytokines, increase in growth factors and angiogenesis promoting factors, which finally leads to increased inflammatory cytokines of all types, and it involves the immune system in pathogenesis. There is increased tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 10, and women with endometriosis have been found to have higher levels of interleukin, interferons and interleukin 4, which finally leads to adhesion and proliferations. And in healthy women, often there is clearance of this menstrual blood by apoptosis, but in endometriosis patient, unfortunately, this inflammatory cascade starts, finally leading to adhesion and proliferation in endometriosis progression, finally leading to the fibrosis. The pathophysiology is the estrogen is basically the responsible factor. Hyperestrogenemia is key, and that's why the treatment is through progesterone by creating the pseudo pregnancy or pseudo menopause stage. And what estrogen leads to? It through the beta receptors increases the level of MIF, which increases the level of PGE2. So this prostaglandin is basically responsible for all the pathogenesis of endometriosis and the pathogenesis of and the pathway of pain. Now, as far as genetics is concerned, it is 7 times greater if a first degree relative has endometriosis. It has got a multifactorial inheritance which has been postulated. Monozygotic twins are markedly concordant for endometriosis, and there is a worldwide collaborative project going on the Oxford endometriosis gene study working on genetic basis. Hopefully in future we'll get some good insights. Now, if in the clinical presentation, whenever a patient is presenting with dysmenorrhea, dyspareunia, and deep-seated pelvic pain, which starts before onset of menses, this is important, and it continued throughout the menstrual period. And number 4, it is having a cyclical nature. So this is something very important when we are studying the ectopic sites like cyclical hematuria. We are studying the cyclical hemoptysis, the cyclical increase in size of a nodule in the scar, these are all already suggestive of endometriosis. Now, deep dyspareunia in such cases is due to stretching of involved tissue during intercourse, and fixed retroverted uterus or involvement of uterosacrals and rectovaginal septum, which lead to fibrosis and frozen pelvis, dysuria and dysphagia in extragenital endometriosis. Now, abnormal bleeding may include premenstrual spotting, polymenorrhea, and menometrorrhagia. However, this abnormal bleeding is usually encountered in patients with adenomyosis. Now, we are going to focus more on infertility in endometriosis in this particular presentation. And this is present in majority of the women with endometriosis. In advanced disease, it leads to adhesions and fixity, which results in structural damage to the tubes and ovaries. And finally, it impairs the tubo-ovarian mobility as well as the tubo-ovarian normal anatomy. In the ovaries, it leads to anovulation, luteinized and ruptured follicle, oocyte maturation defects. In tube, altered tubal motility or ovum pickup. In peritoneum, the intraperitoneal inflammation, and even in sperms, it leads to phagocytosis by the macrophages or inactivation by the antibodies. And in endometrium, it can lead to luteal phase defects and implantation defects. So all in all, endometriosis affects all the organs responsible for the fertility in a woman and decreases infertility all in all. So a nice classification in a detailed manner has been given by American Society of Reproductive Medicine, which is divided into stage 1, 2, 3, and 4 as minimal, mild, moderate, and severe. They have given certain signs and symptoms depending on which one can categorize the type of endometriosis on laparoscopy. Now, as far as laparoscopy is concerned, in cases of endometriosis, it needs some special attention as this is the gold standard. And during laparoscopy, entire pelvis should be examined systematically in clockwise or counterclockwise direction. And aim is detection and biopsy of lesion to confirm our finding. Number 2 is the staging of disease. And number 3, the concomitant laparoscopic surgical treatment is the need of an hour. So in laparoscopy, we can see a varied picture of endometriosis in the form of chocolate cyst. We can see some powder burns, classic gunmetal, vesicles, some red purple raspberry spots. We can see certain peritoneal windows as well over there. Now, it is important because there is no certain consensus still, but ESHRE has given few recommendations how to go ahead with this enigmatic disease as far as the diagnosis and the treatment and the management of endometriosis in infertile patients. So these are the key to grades of recommendations which are used in ESHRE, and higher is the grade, like grade A is depending upon the meta-analysis or multiple randomized trials, so it is of high quality evidence we are having. Same is like B, C and D, they are decreasing in quality of evidence, and GPP is the good practice point. It is based on the expert's opinion. Now, diagnosis of endometriosis as per the ESHRE, based on studies and expert opinion, the guideline development group, they say to consider the diagnosis of endometriosis if a patient is presenting with dysmenorrhea, non-cyclical, even non-cyclical pelvic pain, deep dysmenorrhea, infertility and fatigue, and women of reproductive age group with non-gynecological cyclical symptoms. So cyclical is something which is very important in form of dysphagia, dysuria, hematuria, rectal bleeding, or even shoulder pain in patients with diaphragmatic endometriosis. GD3 again recommends to go ahead with clinical examinations in any of such patients presenting with such clinical signs and symptoms. It includes physical examination of the pelvis and the palpation of abdomen. Perform clinical examination in although vaginal examination is not for unmarried adolescents. Instead, rectal examination with consent is of help in such patients. And consider the diagnosis of deep endometriosis in painful induration and on or nodules of rectovaginal wall is found. Now, what are the challenges in diagnosis? We have to go ahead with the combination of things, like we have to combine the symptoms, we have to combine our per vaginal or the per abdominal palpation findings along with it to finalize laparoscopy is for diagnosis, and positive laparoscopy is only by histology. So lack of evidence is there. If there is positive laparoscopy without evidence, it proves the presence of disease. Histology examination for ovarian endometrioma and or deep infiltrating disease and malignancy is mandatory. So now, as we all know, if we are suspecting, then the patient need to be subjected to ultrasound. So amongst all investigative modality, transvaginal sonography is one of the best modality to rule out the rectal endometriosis, but it needs to be performed by clinicians highly experienced in transvaginal sonography and to exclude ovarian endometrioma. Ovarian endometrioma in a premenopausal women on ultrasound, it appears as ground glass echogenicity in 1 to 4 compartments. Like we can have a small thin septa as well, though there are no papillary structures with detectable blood flow, and 3D ultrasound is of no benefit. So this is a typical picture of ground glass appearance of an endometriotic cyst, which shows fine stippling inside the ovary, commonly called as the ground glass appearance. MRI and biomarkers as per the ESHRE recommendations. There is no use of MRI and there is no use of any biomarkers in endometrial tissue, no use of any immunological biomarkers, CA125. Only if we have to assess the ureter, bladder and bowel involvement, we can go ahead with additional imaging by barium enema or MRI, or depending upon the site which we are suspecting endometriosis is involved with. So the principles of endometriosis treatment, it depends upon what we are going to do. Whether we have to relieve the pain, whether this treatment aims to relieve, go ahead with the fertility enhancement, or it is just the improvement of quality of life, or it includes all three. And the treatment will be either the medical, surgical, or it will be a combination of medical and surgical. Now the concept is very clear. The medical treatment is restricted only for pain. Infertility treatment as such has got no role of medical treatment. So for pain, we have all those hormonal therapies, oral contraceptive, gonadotropin releasing hormones, agonist or antagonist, aromatase inhibitors like letrozole, and definitely the laparoscopic surgery is the need of an hour in patients demanding infertility treatment to remove endometrial implants, repair pelvic anatomy, and combination of medical and surgical therapy in such patients improves outcomes and pain relief. So the algorithm of management of endometriosis goes like this. If it is an asymptomatic minimal endometriosis, just observe the patient to 6 to 8 months, investigate other causes of infertility. If the patient is a symptomatic case, then we have to go ahead with the drug treatment for the minimally invasive surgery or a higher end surgery. Now, drug treatment, I'm not going to go in detail. We all know we have to administer combined oral contraceptive pills to prevent recurrence. Continuous pills needs to be given. Oral progestogens, so many progestogens now we have in our basket of choice: norethistron, dydrogestrone. Danazol is, I don't think we are using it anymore. Aromatase inhibitors like letrozole and estrozole can be used, and it is an anti-estrogenic and it prevents conversion of androgen to estrogen, and it should be given with vitamin D and calcium to prevent osteoporosis. Now, the gonadotropin releasing hormone, it is administered continuously, either a 3-monthly report or a 1-monthly report. This is just to down-regulate and suppress the pituitary gonadotropin. It does leads to the atrophy of endometriotic tissue. However, the prolonged GnRH therapy over 6 months, it causes hypoestrogenism and menopausal symptoms and osteoporosis. That's why it should always be given in combination with add-back therapy with progesterone or estrogen. RU486 has been tried but yet to be used as a routine. So failure of drug therapy, why it is of no use as far as the infertility is concerned? because the drug cannot penetrate the fibrotic capsule. And ectopic endometrium, it responds less to hormones as compared to normal endometrium, and then it leads to conception. It leads to, it is a spelling mistake, it leads to contraception, and that's why it prevents conception. So the only treatment left with infertility in endometriosis is the laparoscopic surgery. To diagnose with biopsy and histology, it is a gold standard. And then, what are the challenges in laparoscopic surgery, whether or not to perform laparoscopic surgery? When we should go ahead with the laparoscopic surgery and when we should avoid laparoscopic surgery? Till date, we are not having any standardized protocol for the benefits of laparoscopy versus the disadvantages, and debate is still going on. Then comes which technique to be used, whether to go for excision, cystectomy, fulguration, CO2 laser, aspiration, drainage, cystectomy for ovarian endometriomas. Again, it is leading to a lot of controversies with the IVF surgeons and with the laparoscopic surgeons, as definitely it reduces ovarian reserve and it leads to iatrogenic infertility. It leads to decrease in AMH and AFC. Though there are quite conflicting meta-analysis and RCT reports, but still we have to see as per the patient condition we are facing with. And laparoscopy for early stages, though the laparoscopy for early stages exhibits promising results. Now, the basic laparoscopic surgical principles to achieve fertility is to attain uterine mobility, adhesiolysis, minimal use of cautery, clearing of ovarian fossa, restoring tubo-ovarian relationship, ovarian cystectomy and excision, fulguration of all visible endometriotic lesions, and judicious use of normal saline with or without vasopressin. So we'll just go ahead with one particular surgery to emphasize upon the role of all these principles. I'd just like to play one video. Just give me a second. Videos. Okay, so this is a stage grade 3 to 4 endometriosis with a big endometrioma of approximately 8 to 10 centimeter in a 23-year-old infertile female. And over here, as you can see, a nice plane is being sorted out between the endometrioma.
Madam, sorry, I'm sorry to.
Yes.
And we are not able to see your video actually.
You're not able to see the video? Just a second.
Yeah.
Just a second. Yes. Go back.
You have to click those two options and show new share. Put a new share.
Okay.
पहले उन दोनों पे क्लिक कर दीजिए, फिर न्यू शेयर करके दिखेगा मैम.
अच्छा, okay, just a second. We need to do again stop share, फिर से शेयरिंग करना होगा, न्यू शेयर करना है.
मैम हाँ मैम, अभी आप स्टॉप करेंगे ना तो आपको पूरा का पूरा स्क्रीन शेयर करना है. अभी आपने केवल पीपीटी शेयर किया है.
Just give me a second. Are you able to see now?
Yes, ma'am, we are able to see.
Okay. So this is the grade 3 to 4 endometriosis with a big endometrioma of 8 to 10 centimeter. I just want to emphasize upon the role of normal saline and vasopressin here. The nice plane has been found in this particular case, so we are able to protect the ovarian follicles. And I'm very much interested in this particular surgery because with this big adhesions and endometrioma, RV nodule, the rectovaginal nodule is there. The minimal use of cautery, and we have opened up the paravesical and pararectal spaces on both the sides. Ureterolysis has been done. Cystectomy is done. Ovarian fossa is cleared. All the areas, they are cleared of extraperitoneal and peritoneal endometriosis. And I'm happy to share this particular patient conceived on her own just after 6 months of the surgery. And now this is again very important to take out the endometrioma in a bag to prevent scar site endometriosis. One more video, and in the end we do put normal saline in the cavity to prevent adhesions. अभी प्ले कर रहे हैं ना, तो इसी को एक और प्ले कर दो. Second video. Okay, this is again one more video. Are you able to see now? Hello? Hello? So this is again, we are injecting with normal saline with vasopressin. I doubt they are able to hear me. Are you able to hear? Are you able to hear? Hello?
Yes, we are able to hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, ma'am, we are able to see, ma'am.
Okay, then fine. So this is again a grade 3 to 4 endometriosis with bilateral ovarian endometriomas with primary infertility of 7 years. The patient presented to us with all the symptoms of infertility, pain, dyspareunia and everything. Again, want to focus and emphasize on the importance of minimal use of cautery, use of normal saline, clearing all the adhesions, achieving uterine mobility, clearing ovarian fossa, dissection of paravesical and pararectal spaces, ureterolysis on both the sides, maintaining tubo-ovarian relationship on both the sides. This is the ureter in the paravesical space on both the sides. So a nice uterine mobility is being achieved. The uterosacral endometriosis, can you see the uterosacrum? The uterosacral ligament is being covered by a sheet of endometriosis, as well as this ureter is being engulfed by the extraperitoneal endometriosis. So this complete removal of extraperitoneum is being done. All the tissue is being put in the bag. Rest other endometriotic implants are being coagulated. Nice suction is being done. And in the end, we have put normal saline. And this particular patient also conceived post-operatively spontaneously. Now one video I'll show in the end. बाद में. Stop here. Stop. Stop share. Stop share.
We have to stop the video.
Focusing on the endometriomas.
And we have to stop the video.
Most challenging thing among all endometriotic surgeries. They are basically the ovarian which contains the ectopic endometrial tissue. They are observed in 70–44% of the patients with endometriosis.
Ma'am, sorry to bother you again, ma'am. You have to share your video.
How an endometrioma is formed by invagination of ovarian cortex, secondary to bleeding, invagination of ovarian cortex, secondary to metaplasia of coelomic epithelium in cortical diffusion cyst, or endometriotic transformation of functional cyst. Now, endometriomas, they can cause lower oocyte quality and decreased number of oocytes that are retrieved during fertility treatment. This is suggested by many studies. And laparoscopy, if we are going ahead, it definitely
Ma'am, sorry to bother you, ma'am.
Iatrogenic complications. It leads to damage to ovary. It leads to decrease in AMH.
You have to close the video, ma'am.
Okay, so what is the mechanism of ovarian tissue damage in endometrioma? Basically, it leads to inflammatory reaction due to increased number of immune cells, increased number of levels of cytokines, chemokines, and hardware, and which further leads to fibrosis. And it leads to mechanical damage of the ovarian tissue by the compression and stretching of ovarian tissue, hampered blood circulation, and disturbed neovascularization, and all these things finally leads to fibrosis and deepening of fibrosis into the ovarian tissue. So the journal rules of choice of treatment is, first we have to decide whether to operate on an endometrioma or to manage conservatively, whether to excise the excision of lesions is preferential, ablative techniques as such are
Excuse me,
not
ma'am.
suitable, and
Ma'am, your voice is not clear, ma'am.
ESHRE has given their clear-cut guidelines to perform cystectomy instead of drainage and coagulation, and cystectomy reduces endometriosis-associated pain. Stop share करो पहले. Stop share करना. अरे stop share करो ना.
मैम एक्चुअली इन बिटवीन आपका जो वो वीडियो जो था ना वो प्ले हो रखा था, उसकी वजह से डबल साउंड आ रहा था मैम, इको हो रहा था.
Okay, so I think I must go ahead again.
Yeah,
so
ma'am, please.
Endometriomas, they are the ovarian cysts containing ectopic endometrial tissue, which are observed in 17 to 44% of patients with endometriosis. And there are three main theories: invagination of ovarian cortex secondary to bleeding, invagination of ovarian cortex secondary to metaplasia of coelomic endometrium, coelomic epithelium in cortical inclusion cyst. It leads to there is endometriotic transformation of functional cyst. And it has been proven endometriomas, they cause lower oocyte quality and decreased number of oocytes are retrieved during fertility treatment. And definitely the laparoscopy carry risk of complications and damage to ovary. So the basic mechanism of ovarian tissue damage which is induced by endometriosis is nicely been explained in this diagram. It leads to inflammatory reaction due to increased number of immune cells, elevated number of cytokines, chemokines and ROS, finally leading to tissue fibrosis. And then it leads to mechanical damage to the ovary by compression and stretching of ovarian tissue, hampering its blood circulation and disturbed neovascularization. So when finalizing the endometrial treatment, there are certain journal rules for choice of treatment. We have to decide whether to operate or to manage conservatively, whether to go ahead with the excision of lesions. Ablative techniques, they are not suitable for advanced form of endometriosis, and for ovarian endometrioma, perform cystectomy instead of drainage and coagulation. Cystectomy also reduces endometriosis-associated pain, and performing cystectomy rather than CO2 laser vaporization in ovarian endometrioma to avoid recurrence. Now, again, there are many challenges in treatment of endometrioma and endometriosis. Whether surgical resection to be done before ART, whether to go ahead with the conservative management, or directly we need to refer the patient to ART specialist. As the early menopausal transition has been noticed in patients if previous surgery has been done, and post-surgical ovarian failure has been noticed after bilateral ovarian endometrioma surgery. So there was certain studies, meta-analysis and pooled analysis of 237 patients was done, and Basim and El-Sadi has done a nice work on it, and they have published this study, and they found there is a significant reduction in AMH after ovarian cystectomy. And then a prospective observational study was done by Basim and El-Sadi again to monitor. They monitored the cycle up to 6 ovulatory cycles, and it was seen that rate of ovulation with unilateral endometriomas was as high as 43%, and higher pregnancy rate was there in unilateral ovarian endometriomas if there are no tubal disease and normal semen analysis. So there are different studies which suggest with different things like stripping versus cystectomy, spontaneous conceptions. There is meta-analysis by Gupta et al. In 2006. They say there is no significant difference on rate and pregnancy with controls. There is another study, meta-analysis by Young et al., which excludes women with previous surgery, and they say there is significant lower oocytes, metaphase 2 oocytes, and total embryos in endometrioma. The impact of surgery of endometrioma on IVF and ICSI has been seen. It leads to lower number of oocytes and to oocytes. So a comprehensive advice is being given by Basim and Al-Sadi in one of the journals by Velasco in Human Reproduction 2009. So they say if there is no previous intervention. So what are the factors which favor surgery? Patients, there is no previous interventions for endometriosis, go for surgery. If the ovarian reserve is intact, we can go for surgery. Pain symptoms are present, go for surgery. If it is a unilateral, can go for surgery. And if there is any sonographic features of malignancy, of course, one has to go for surgery and there is a rapid growth. Other than that, the factors opposite to them, it is suggestive of there is no need to go for surgery, better to go for expectant management. So laparoscopic surgery, conservative surgery is the gold standard for ovarian endometrioma. Repeat surgery is not recommended for infertility purpose, and recurrence post-surgery is seen in 29 to 53% of the cases in 2 years, and 43% cases recurrence is seen in 5 years. Now, for the prevention of recurrence, there is a nice study by Lara and Mrs. Lisolet-Metler, and it's been published in June-September 2018. They say we can go ahead with continuous use of oral contraceptive pills as it increases apoptosis and decreases cell proliferation, and such thing decreases recurrence by 3 to 11% in 2 years. Gonadotropin releasing hormone agonist, they can delay recurrence but definitely cannot prevent it. And pregnancy, if the patient conceives post surgery, nothing better than that, as a lot of progesterone is being released and it is quite protective. And sclerotherapy, it is under research, and few of the IVF specialists are still using it in our country. Dr. Rajesh Koradia, he is a very good fan of sclerotherapy. So these are the baseline characteristics of endometrioma and or endometriosis related pain recurrence in non-recurrence group, and they have given few risk factors which will lead to the post-op recurrence of ovarian endometriosis, and it was shown in long-term follow-up of 358 patients. So I think it's a nice study. We can just go ahead one by one, all of them. So age gravida parity is of no role, but definitely bigger is the size of endometrioma, it is of great woe. It is directly correlated. Dysmenorrhea, it is directly correlated. If the patient is having dysmenorrhea for a longer period of time, it correlates well to the recurrence. Obliteration of cul-de-sac, if it is complete, it will lead to recurrence. Presence of deep infiltrating endometriosis, adenomyosis, leads to recurrence of endometriosis or endometrioma in such patients. It has been seen the post-operative dysmenorrhea relief, when is achieved, it leads to non-recurrence of endometrioma. And cystectomy, post-operative pregnancy definitely have got a very high positive correlation with non-recurrence of endometrioma. Continuous use of oral contraceptive pill, GnRH agonist with or without LNG IUCD is of great help in preventing or delaying recurrence of endometrioma. So with endometriosis and challenges in IVF, there is lack of clinical signs and delays in diagnosis of up to 2 to 9 years. And control ovarian stimulation protocols, they can cause recurrence as we are using lot of estrogen, and endometriosis is a estrogen dependent disease. A correlation between a recurrent implantation failure and endometriosis has been noticed in IVF patient, and overuse of IVF in undiagnosed, untreated endometriosis leads to futile results, and challenge of failing to diagnose and treating it as an unexplained infertility leads to recurrent implantation failure. So as such, the algorithm for suspected endometriosis patient is, if we are suspecting a patient with endometriosis, better to go ahead with the infertility workup. If there are other indications for IVF and ICSI, like some tubal factor or male factor, just go ahead with the IVF. go ahead with the ovarian reserve test like AFC and AMH. If it's a poor ovarian reserve or old age, better to go for IVF and ICSI straight. If there is suspicion of minimal or mild endometriosis, better to go ahead with the surgical treatment. If the tubal factor is good, aggressive treatment is needed in form of ovulation induction and IUI for 3 to 6 cycles. And in suspicion of moderate and severe endometriosis, better to go ahead with patient-specific decision making or switch over to IVF or ICSI. Now, this is a very nice endometriosis fertility index for predicting pregnancy after endometriosis surgery given by a Chinese medical journal in 2017. And though it's quite an exhaustive one, which considers the fallopian tubes, involvement of fallopian tubes, fimbria, ovary, the factors such as age, years of infertility, previous pregnancy, all these things they are scored, and then they say whether this patient can conceive spontaneously or not. It can be used. Now, summarizing the current research options. So, endometriosis in general population, laparoscopy is something which leads to endometriosis improvement, fecundity improvement, psychological alleviation, though it is an invasive procedure. Medical therapy is recommended only for pain associated endometriosis, and only the pain is improved and it is a non-invasive. And combination of laparoscopy and medication therapy will lead to improvement of endometriosis pain, and it's an invasive procedure. So endometriosis in IVF patients diagnosed with unexplained infertility and recurrent implantation failure, laparoscopy followed by IVF is the gold standard as suggested by ESHRE guidelines in 2014. It leads to endometriosis in improvement, though there is risk of reappearance of endometriosis due to controlled ovarian stimulation protocols. So rest current research is being in the process. So as per the ESHRE, the treatment of endometriosis infertility, there is no role of any medical treatment. In infertile women with stage 1 and 2 endometriosis, operative laparoscopy, excision or ablation of endometriotic lesions with ileoceolysis. Similarly, in stage 2 and 3, we can go ahead with excision rather than ablation. In infertile women with ovarian endometrioma, excision or cystectomy rather than just going ahead with the drainage. And in stage 3 and 4, operative laparoscopy instead of expected management is the need of an hour. Hormonal therapy, there is no role. This we have seen, this we have seen. So now a nice paper which has been recently published in Journal of Minimally Invasive Gynecology in September-October 2020, the laparoscopic ethanol sclerotherapy for endometriomas. The preliminary results they have set, and they selected 53 women with endometriomas measuring 4 to 10 centimeter with no malignancy. In this, the laparoscopic aspiration of fluid was done, endometriotic fluid, and then they injected 95% of ethanol into the endometrioma. 25% of the volume what is being aspirated, and then everything is washed. The 95% ethanol solution in the cyst is left for 15 minutes. It is removed and it's been washed nicely. And they say the ultrasound has been done at 3, 6, 9 and 12 months and then annually, and post-operative hormonal therapy has been administered. And to conclude, laparoscopic aspiration and ethanol sclerotherapy in patients with bilateral endometriomas or with deep-seated endometriosis, they say the recurrence is as low as 10%. There is no major complications, and as per them, the oocyte reduction and quality of oocyte is better, and there is less reduction in AFC and AMH when sclerotherapy is being done. So this is something which is way to go, and we can practice in our routine. We are yet to adopt it in our routine practice. So to conclude, in dysmenorrhea, pelvic pain in early reproductive years, endometriosis should be considered as differential diagnosis. TBS is a non-invasive operator-dependent diagnostic modality. Medical therapy has got no role in infertility with endometrioma and endometriosis. Laparoscopy is the gold standard for diagnosis and treatment modality in infertility. Wait and watch is no policy in post-surgery infertile patients. And aggressive infertility treatment post-surgery, either IUI if the tubes are good and IVF or ICSI should be considered irrespective of the tubal and male factors. Endometriosis and in endometrioma, the first surgery should be the best and complete surgery to reduce recurrence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the excellent presentation.
Hello.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Hello. Are they listening? Hello.
Hello. It was very nice presentation, ma'am. Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Hello, yeah, Mr. Saurabh, I am done with the presentation. Either I can play the video or I can take up the questions, whatever the audience or the participants want. Or we can just share the questions with each other and share the experiences, because endometriosis is something which poses a different challenge and complication to each and every one of us. Hello.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are very much audible, Dr. Prachi.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you for the excellent presentation. I was continuously speaking. Probably I wasn't audible earlier enough. Thank you very much. There are a couple of questions in the chat box. So if you allow me, I will share those questions. I will read those questions.
Okay, sure, Prachi. I'm very much ready.
The one question is from Dr. Shanta Kumari.
Yeah.
She's wanting to know the effect of cabergoline. I guess it is cabergoline in endometriosis. Is there any?
Prachi, can you just unmute everyone else, because I can hear not many voices from other people as well?
Sure. Velusamy, can you help me with muting others? I'm requesting all the doctors to please mute yourself.
Renu ma'am and Prachi ma'am, you can unmute ma'am.
Yes, I have already unmuted. Yes, Prachi.
Yes, the question is effect of cabergoline. I guess it is cabergoline in endometriosis.
Cabergoline is yet to be, I think it is one of the research thing. I focused more on laparoscopy in this particular because we were focusing on infertility. So as such, any medical therapy in infertility for treatment of infertility in endometriosis is of no help. And the role of cabergoline is still yet to be, it is under research.
Ma'am, is it available in India or how is it?
Cabergoline, of course, I think it is available in India. If the spelling is correct in it, this is something not else. I think it is cabergoline only, yeah?
Yes, it is cabergoline, yes.
Yeah.
Ma'am, there are a lot of comments that the presentation was very elaborate and clear presentation, and it was excellent presentations. So thank you very much. There is one more question from Dr. Menmozi. If the whole ovary is occupied with the endometrioma, 10 by 12 centimeters, would you prefer cystectomy or the whole of the ovary has to be removed?
Of course, as we have already seen in 2 of our videos, we'll go ahead with the cystectomy. Why to remove an ovary in such patients when we can do a nice cystectomy, right? So oophorectomy has to be the very, very last choice. And I think I have not done a single cystectomy in any of my patients as far as the endometrioma is concerned. We do get the plane, so the important thing is just give an incision on the most prominent part of the endometrioma, drain the endometrioma, find out the plane between the endometriotic cyst and the capsule, and then with the help of a traumatic grasper and another grasper, just keep on peeling the endometrioma one by one. If you find any difficulty, before that you can put vasopressin with normal saline in the hilum, or as well as in between the cyst and the endometriotic wall. It peels off very nicely, doctor. So there is no need to go ahead with the oophorectomy. This is one thing which I really want to avoid in all patients, even at the age of 45. Yeah, oophorectomy, hysterectomy, they are the surgeries to be avoided.
Correct, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next question is from Dr. Abida Parvin. The endometriotic cyst, 2 by 2 centimeter in a 24-year-old woman, and there is a history of 3 years of infertility. So what should be the treatment choice?
See, 2 by 2 centimeter, you may not need any cystectomy, as the ESHRE recommendation says. A cyst, endometrioma cyst, more less than 3 centimeter, and if all other factors, like if you find like in HST, your tubal factor is fine, you can go ahead with IUI. Right? But if in 2 or 3 cycles of IUI or not, your patient is not able to conceive, then go ahead for a diagnostic laparoscopy. Remove all endometriotic implants. And if you are able to easily access that endometriotic cyst, just do a small cystectomy. That's fine. And definitely your patient will conceive more or less spontaneously if other factors are normal.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, is there any role of IVF in this patient post surgery?
This small 2 by 2 centimeter cyst, if her tubes are normal, definitely no. Right? If a patient with IUI can conceive, definitely we must like go ahead with a IUI for next 3 cycles.
Right, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The comment is there for thanking you for the answer as well as for the presentation from Dr. Abida Parvin. Ma'am, do you have any videos to share? Any additional videos to share?
We have one more. We have 2 more videos. One is quite long. I can share a 3-minute more video if the audience they want. Or what is the time right now? It's 6:30. Do you want me to share the video? Prachi, do you want me to share the video?
Hello?
Yeah, Prachi, you want me to share the video?
It's up to you. I mean, we would be, of course, very happy to see additional information.
Sure, sure. We'll go ahead with that. Just give me a second, okay? I'll share. Need to stop sharing screen share again. Okay. Is everyone able to see? Hello?
Not yet, ma'am.
लगता है stop करके करना होगा राहुल.
We can see your screen, but it is not playing yet. Running yet.
Are you able to see, Prachi, my video over there? No?
No, ma'am, I cannot see your screen as
Hello?
well. Please. Hello? I cannot see your screen as well.
You are able to see the video? Just a second, I'll just unmute the things. Mute. No, it will be.
Ma'am, you have to stop your video, ma'am. Ma'am, you have to stop your video, ma'am. It is parallelly coming. That is why this sound, ma'am. You stop the video. That's it.
वीडियो पॉज कर दे स्टॉप करने के लिए बोलो वेबिनार का शेयर करते हैं आवाज जाएगी
हाँ ठीक है ठीक है
Yes, we could see earlier, but now again it has gone.
Do you see earlier?
Good afternoon, everyone. And with the left ovarian tissue,
just give me a second.
actually getting very difficult to
Saurabh, can you hold?
understand whether the ovary
Just
is
a
being
second.
adhered. Most of the lesions are very, very point above and
So this is like a full-fledged, unedited sort of video of 30 minutes. Those who want to join, they can. This is again.
Ma'am, we are not able to see video, ma'am.
You are not able to see video. Okay.
We are not able to see.
Just give me a few seconds. You please help Rahul, okay? इसको stop करो पहले यहाँ pause करो. अच्छा ठीक है तो मैं नहीं बोलूँगी उसका आप चलने दो.
good afternoon, everyone.
Not bad.
Then the uterus. Bilateral tubular ostia, you can see the bubbles are going inside, so we are expecting.
शेयर स्क्रीन करना पड़ेगा
screen option.
Subset.
न्यू शेयर करना पड़ेगा तभी दिखेगा मैम.
We are not able to.
Ma'am, we are able to see your screen now, but the thing is that it is a new screen. जो आप वीडियो दिखाएंगे, it is a new screen. तो आप जब you go back.
स्क्रीन दिख रही है पर वीडियो प्ले नहीं हो रहा है. वीडियो नहीं
मैम आप शेयर स्क्रीन में जब आएंगे ना तो उसमें आपको दिखाते हैं कंप्लीट स्क्रीन को शेयर कीजिए मैम.
Share screen we have seen.
First one.
Are you able to see now?
Yes ma'am, very much.
Okay. So in this video, it's already having.
But we are not going to do any surgery in this particular case because we know they are having. I have done this ultrasound on my own and I could see she was having bilateral ovarian endometriomas, kissing ovaries, and everything was gummed in the pouch of Douglas. So there was a cul-de-sac obliteration. Now the diagnostic laparoscopy, we have put the scope camera port 1 inch above the umbilicus and the lower port. Left lower port 1 inch above and medial to the anterior superior iliac spine. Over here we are using Apple trocars. So just as soon as we put the scope inside, just have a clear view of the whole abdominal cavity. Suctioning of the fluid in the abdominal cavity is being done. Some amount of fluid seems to be coming due to hysteroscope. You can see the uterus. We are still observing the whole thing. So we have already put the primary port and the 3 seconds. To avoid this, we can use a quarter section or diluted vasopressin. It helps in giving us better place between the uterus and other important structures. So we have injected approximately 50 to 60 ml of vasopressin, and I must mention Dr. Sanket Pisil has created this needle and he has got patented it for the purpose. And we must be proud of the very fact he is our very own Dr. Sanket. So now the important thing is the traction and counter traction in appropriate direction. Adhesiolysis is important part of any endometriotic surgeries, and we have to understand the type of adhesions, and they do vary from one patient to other patient. Adhesions, all type of adhesions, they can be seen. They can be flimsy or dense or thick, dense vascular adhesions. Now, right-sided ovarian tissue along with endometrioma is being lifted up. It's again densely adherent. left-sided ovarian endometrioma is also adherent, and often as soon as you try to lift them up because of tough fluid within the cavity, they get ruptured from the most weakest part. Just drain the endometrioma, and it also gives you some space from where to access. And whenever there is such type of stage 3-4 endometriosis, when there is cul-de-sac obliteration, bilateral ovarian endometriomas, and other important findings, it is important to find out what are important structures to take care. And important structures while doing adhesiolysis are bowel, bladder, ureter, and great vessels. So all our surgical principles will be based on that. And along with this, the important thing in fertility enhancing is we have to minimize the use of energy source. Using any energy source and keeping the field absolutely very clear. Yeah, time is like we are already done with 8 minutes 40 seconds of the video, but we are just starting with the surgery, okay? So don't be worried. We have just applied, we have just injected the vasopressin, and we are giving a traction on the uterus, right? So as soon as we have given the traction, the right and left ovarian endometriomas are drained. The planes are getting little bit clear, and minimizing, we are very much concerned about the use of energy source in such type of fertility enhancing endometriotic surgery. We will be using only and only if it is necessary. Now in these cases, it is important to clear the ovarian fossa of the underlying peritoneal structures, and ureterolysis and rectal and paravesical space dissection is also an important part. Now coming on to the left side, adhesions of the sigmoid colon to the round ligament and fallopian tube and lateral abdominal wall has been taken care with the help of simple sharp dissection and traction in the appropriate plane. Just understand the plane between the two tissues, and little bit of traction and simple scissor, they help you. But have to be careful while going ahead with the dissection. As of now, we have played 10 minutes 15 seconds or 16-17 seconds of the video, okay? So we are just going ahead with the adhesiolysis, which is the first and foremost part of endometriotic surgeries. So just below the sigmoid colon, this abdominal wall, there are great vessels. So traction in the opposite direction is very important, and be very careful with your anatomical landmarks, because the endometriotic, no patients of endometriotic surgery, they present in the same way. Be very careful with the use of any energy source.
With your video, please go and forward it to 11:40.
In the process of cul-de-sac obliteration, release of adhesions. So we have already released the adhesions on the left side of sigmoid colon, and we are trying to approach sacral promontory on the left side, right? So you can just imagine the amount of anatomical distortion which you can see over here. It's very difficult to distinguish whether this is an ovarian endometrioma which is adhering to the pouch of Douglas, or it is a part of our colon. what I have done is I have put a sponge forceps in the vagina and I have put one rectal probe in the rectum, and then slowly and comfortably going ahead. So we are now able to separate the left ovary along with endometrioma, which has been, cystectomy has been done over here, and then we are trying to clear the ovarian fossa. So the important step again now over here is to release this colon from the cul-de-sac. Often there are thick dense adhesions, and yes, the diluted vasopressin, it helps in creating a nice plane and gives us better picture by creating a avascular plane over here. So one have to be very, very clear with the anatomical landmarks, and if we can find out the bilateral uterosacral ligaments, the tissue feel is important, what you are dealing with, whether you are holding the uterosacral, whether you are dealing with the rectovaginal nodule, where you are, it is very important. So as soon as you are in the correct plane, you really get into a nice way. So now we are already done.
Doctor, I'm sorry to interrupt again.
Yes.
It would be great if you can keep continuing helping us to know.
Here and we have reached the fascia of the non-failure and it's been dissected nicely. Now comes the dissection of sacral promontory on the left side, because we want to do ureterolysis on both right and left side, which is also the part of endometriotic surgery. As of now, we have in the pelvis. So here the ureter is being identified. As far as the principles of laparoscopic surgeries and retroperitoneal dissection suggest, we have to go parallel to the tubular structures. First, identify the ureter, open up the retroperitoneum by bearing up the peritoneum is opened. Ureter as a tubular structure with peristalsis is recognized. Yes, so we could recognize the ureter with its peristalsis, and then parallel to the tubular structure. That means parallel to the ureter, we have to go forward. And dissection is being done. In the meantime, we are trying to find out the patency of the fallopian tubes. The tubes, they are very, very friable. The current time of video is 17 minutes 48 seconds. Okay. So often on we do inject to find out the current position of the fallopian tube. So we are now very clear. This is fallopian tube, and we are going to take good care of it now. Because the patient was having this thing, and just doing a little bit of febrile adhesions are being released, so that there is free flow of dye from the tube. Simple Meridian forceps. Just open it up in both directions and things are done. And you can notice the effect of diluted vasopressin. The fields are very, very clear as far as endometriosis is concerned. And just notice the amount of adhesiolysis which we have done from the posterior surface of the uterus till the cul-de-sac up to the lower level, right? Now, important point is to go ahead with the excision of remaining endometriosis.
Yeah, Prachi?
Shall we go with the entire surgery, or how is it your suggestion?
Yeah, as you wish. As you wish. I have no problem, or I'll just fast forward the surgery. Okay, that will be fine.
Things.
Sorry, ma'am, I did
So
not
much
get you.
turned off here.
I'll just
A
forward
simple
the
holding,
surgery, right?
getting it
One after
hold
the
by your
Yes,
assistant
ma'am.
helps sometimes.
That
So
would
this
be
is
great.
the nodule which is traversed by ureter, and it is divided into right and left pararectal spaces. The right paradermal damage and blood supply to the ureter. Ureter is engulfed on all the sides by the peritoneum, and this overlying peritoneum, this complete ureter is being supplied by a collateral of mesenteric vessels. The time as of now in my video is when coagulation will be given to the roof of peritoneum containing endometriosis. Small shots and sharp dissection. Anterior division of internal iliac artery is further getting divided into superior vesical artery and uterine artery. We are still struggling. We have to understand the uterine artery and vein, they form a fork over the ureter. Okay, so uterine artery, as we all know, has been reading since years, water under the bridge. So ureter, it lies below the uterine artery, but uterine vein, it goes below the ureter. Okay, so in between the uterine artery and vein lies the ureter. So one has to be very, very careful while dealing with bleeders over the ureter. We are taking small bursts of energy, small cuts are being given so as to release this thick endometriotic nodule on the right side of uterosacral ligament, which has to be so on the right side of the bladder, there are central space. Below the uterine artery is in the surrounding vicinity. Even a small endometriotic nodule, it poses a lot of problem and needs to be, that's why the anatomical landmarks have to be very, very clear while going ahead with these surgeries. So all type of alterations, that is the adhesions, the hormonal, structural distortions, all type of distortions in all forms are seen in endometriotic surgeries, and that's why the endometriotic surgeries is the most difficult surgeries to go ahead. It is even more difficult than the radical surgeries in cancer patients. So over here, the spaces and everything is very, very clear, and on right side, lateral to superior vesical artery is our obturator fossa, which contains the obturator. The fossa is in close proximity with the ureter, and whenever we are dealing with any energy source, this ureter gets damaged. Ureter is again identified. The peritoneum engulfing the ureter, infiltrated with endometriosis, is released. As you can see over here, medial to ureter. Along the side, lateral and parallel to the ureter, dissection is continued to release it from the overlying peritoneum, which is infiltrated with endometriosis. Our aim is to release the ureteric adhesions till the apex of uterosacral ligament. In normal patient, ureter lies approximately 1 to 1.5 centimeters lateral to uterosacral ligament. But over here, you can just see to it how close the ureter is. It is, in fact, they are in close combination. It's like hugging each other, right? Now, the lateral pararectal space dissection is being done. minimizing the use of any energy source with the help of pushing, going along. We are trying to find out the internal iliac artery. Internal iliac artery, which is a branch of common iliac artery, is the most important arterial supply to the pelvis. It gets divided into anterior division and vein, which lies below the uterine artery. It goes below the ureter. So both of them, they form a hook thing, right? The ligament ureter is actually very much pushed down. Uterine artery can be excised. So now we are, because we have released the ureter and off the normal appearing follicles. The time on my video as of now is 42 minutes 55. So I was looking out for this one as in transvaginal ultrasound. I could see one cyst, though this appears to be a corpus luteum cyst. This appears to be a proliferation. Conservative towards the function of the tissue. It's a friable tissue. It's not coming up nicely because it's a hematite cyst or corpus luteum cyst. Now on the left side, looking forward for any cyst walls, remaining cyst walls. So more or less, our surgical output and the principles of endometriotic surgery in this particular patients is achieved. We have achieved uterine mobility. Okay, cul-de-sac is clear of adhesions. Adhesiolysis is done. Bilateral fallopian tubes are patent. Bilateral ovarian cystectomy is done. Peri-ovarian and peri-tubal adhesions are well taken care of. Ovarian fossa is released of adhesion. Bilateral pararectal space dissection. Uretrolysis is done. Uterosacral ligament is cleared of the nodules. Paravesical space dissection is being done. Now we are checking for the hemostasis under saline. So good wash by saline and depression cervix, uterosacral ligament away from the suction. Pinpoint complete. We are just need to go ahead with the saline dissection. And we just go ahead with the saline comfortable incoagulating the uterosacral ureters are lying behind and lateral. You can post a during surgeries. So, can I pause the video out? Everything is again checked under saline. That over here we are putting safeguard.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. I don't see any more questions in the chat box. So thank you very much. Thank you for those excellent videos. And I'm sure.
Thank you, Sheil, and all the participants so staying with me and encouraging us. And I'm looking forward for the more questions. And if there are more discussions to be done, I'm always there.
Ma'am, no, currently there are no more questions from the participants.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheil.
Thank you, ma'am.
And yes, there's a comment for the surgery as well that it was very beautifully done and nice technique.
Yeah, Dr. Niti Sehgal. Yeah. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, ma'am.
Bye-bye.